Don't put all your hope in stock market. So I just got we just did an interview with Professor Emeritus. I can't remember. He told me how to pronounce it. I forgot how to pronounce it already because I'm from Maine, even though he's from Massachusetts. But anyway, Edward Macquarie. We'll put that video up on tomorrow. I'll put it on my locals channel tonight. But just one a wonderful wealth of information. It's just a lot of fun. And what he talks about is just that stocks and bonds have basically mimicked each other going back to the 1800s. They just have. Sometimes stocks outperform, sometimes bonds keep up, but the vast majority of the time they've just been even Steven. Except, and that's what I've been trying to say, there's this 20-year time frame from I think he said 46 or 48 to 68, something like that, where stocks so decimated bonds that if you use that 20-year time frame in any historical measure of stocks versus bonds, stocks will always beat bonds. And when I was prepping for my interview with Edward, it brought me back to this book because he challenges Jeremy Siegel. And it's funny, he said, I'm a professor, I can make fun of anybody. I got a kick out of that because I was trying to be a little bit more diplomatic, if you will. But here's Jeremy Siegel. Between 1975 and the end of 1983, small cap stocks exploded. During these years, small stocks averaged 35%, whereas large cap stocks averaged 15%. So small cap stocks doubled on a regular basis, large cap stocks over a 9-year time frame. Cumulative return of small stocks during these 9 years exceeded 1,400%. Nevertheless, if the 9-year period from 1975 through 1983 is eliminated, the total accumulation in large stocks over the entire period through 1926, from 1926 on, is virtually the same. So you take out this 9-year time frame for small and large stocks, and it's virtually the same as large. So it basically destroys the whole idea of a small cap bias. We've had, because you look at French fam, a valuation bias, a small cap value, well, I guess that'd be small, PE ratios. But that's what they used to say, small cap bias. And if you take out, according to Siegel, and I think this is pretty not rocket science, but locked down. According to Siegel, you take out that 9-year time frame, there is no small cap bias. Same with stocks over bonds. You take out that 20-year time frame from 1946 and 1968, 22-year time frame, there is no bias of stocks over bonds. There isn't. And Ed, in the video we shows that. And then people say, yeah, but you can't take it out. But you can for forward looking. This is what I'm talking. You're looking in the rear view mirror. I'm looking in the forward mirror. So you'd have to say, how do we reclaim that small cap bias? What would cause us to reclaim the small cap bias where we say, I'm going to put more money in small cap stocks? And the way you do that is you have to say, because here's what Siegel says. He says it literally, what caused the tremendous performance of small caps from 1975 to 1983? In the late 70s and early 80s, pension and institutional managers found themselves attracted to smaller stocks following the collapse of the Nifty 50 that were so popular in the 60s. In addition, the enactment of the ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act, in 1974 made it easier for pension funds and larger companies with pensions and other assets they're using as a fiduciary to diversify into small cap stocks, boosting their holdings in these issues. So not only were people getting rid of their Nifty 50 stocks as they got crushed in 73, 74, but they're actually now they had the green light to buy small cap stocks. What would be the impetus to have that happen again? Well, I mean, literally, you'd have to say, for the small cap stock bias to happen, something like that would have to happen again. What would it be? Because that in of itself, they're not going to write another ERISA that all of a sudden is going to open up the world of small cap stocks. They're not. So what would it be? Then it's complete speculation. Well, it happened during these 9-year time frame, which shows that small caps beats large caps. Thus, something like that will happen again. Why? The same thing with stocks over bonds. What happened in that 20-year time frame, and we know what, and I didn't know this, is crazy. Ed was saying that what caused the 20-year time frame of bonds to get decimated, I had no clue. The Treasury, the U.S. Treasury, because now we're on the fiat currency, instead of having huge inflation, which meant high interest rates, corresponding interest rates, in World War II, they could keep, not inflation, but they could keep interest rates low because they're issuing debt to fund the war. Because there was no gold standard. Man, and so you think about it, they're issuing this debt at 2%. Wars lead to inflation. Who's going to buy a bond at 2 after the war is done at 2% when inflation starts taking off? Because inflation took off in 40. In that book, I talk about it right here. It took off in, I don't know if 47, but certainly 48, 49. Inflation took off like a bat out of hell. So no one's going to buy a bond at 2% fixed, a coupon essentially, if inflation's at 10, 11, 12%. So what you see is you have this gradual decline of the bond market because and I don't know what the Treasury is doing after that in terms of interest rates, I don't know. But no one's going to buy that because they're like, man, I'm getting, not only am I not making money relative to inflation in bonds, but stock market is going through the roof. So you have to say for stocks to repeat that just destruction of bonds comparatively to bonds, what would cause that? I have no clue. And you don't have any clue either. So if you have no clue, all it is pure speculation. You're saying this will happen because it happened in the past. And Ed even said it, and this is what I'd love to hear. He said, look, man, we don't have enough time frame of stocks to get, and I'm kind of putting words in his mouth, but this is what I got from it. We don't have enough time of individual unique time frames, like 20 years, to have any, essentially, we can't make any predictions based on 20-year time frames. We just don't. And I just want to go back to what my man Michael Edison said, who is a mathematician, by the way. Ed is not. Ed's, which is why I like that, because he brings this a fresh, like he wasn't trained in economics or finance, so he brings it with a different viewpoint, which is absolutely what you want. So I want to read what my man, hold on a second. So I emailed him, asked him about the statistical relevance of historical returns. And here's what Edison says, and Edison just crushes, man. Let's see. Basically, the idea is that if we're trying to find statistical evidence about long-term returns, say 30-year time periods, we've only got about 3 independent 30-year periods available since the start of the Ibsen data in 1926. Maybe 4 with Diamond, Marsh, and Stanton, which is actually, we call the Stanton Virginia, so I guess it's Staunton here, but for me, because I've lived in Western Virginia for so long, it looks like Stanton. But DMS, Diamond, Marsh, and Stanton, which is what Edward referred to back in another study in his paper too, because it goes back longer, in the Triumph of the Optimist book that they had written. We only have 3 or maybe 4 independent 30-year time frames to look at. Not enough to draw any kind of statistical inference at all. And trying to multiply the number of 30-year periods for statistical analysis by analyzing rolling 30-year periods doesn't help, since the time periods are so overlapping, the data is so duplicative, a statistical analysis using that kind of data would not have a leg to stand on. These are guys that are way smarter than me, man. Look, I can read and I can ask questions. I don't know the mathematics behind this. I'm not a bright guy. I mean, I just like to read. I'm a hardcore reader, you know what I'm saying? And so I think, and I read, I say, okay, that kind of makes sense. And not I ask people. Sometimes they don't answer. I asked Edward, too, about the difference between the bond returns he's got versus the guy over New York University. I can't pronounce the guy's name, Schiller, and even the Ibsen stuff. And he says, he basically said, they're all looking at yields. I actually look at the prices, not just yields. And I don't infer any return. I get the return. This is what the prices did in the bonds. It went from 5 to 4, 4 to 5. That's a real return. They're just inferring based on yields, and there's a survivorship bias too. Are they looking at any bonds that stayed the course, i.e., did not go bankrupt? If the answer is no, then that's just, it's a survivorship bias. Yeah, it was a very interesting interview. I can't wait to post that tomorrow. Again, if you're on my locals channel, you'll get to it first, so you can always subscribe to my locals channel. $5 a month. I'm not doing live tonight. I'm burnt out on that. Right? I've had a number of live streams or interviews the last couple of days. I'm just burnt out. But I am going to give my locals channel first dibs at this interview I did with Edward. Then I'll put it up on YouTube. So $5 a month, locals channel. You can subscribe down below. But don't put all your hope in stocks, man. I'm not saying stocks are bad. I'm not saying anything. I still own stocks. About 70% of my portfolio is stocks. But you can't put all your hope in stocks. There's not the evidence to back that, simply isn't there. All right, love to hear your thoughts. God bless. We'll see you.